Well, good morning and welcome to Coffee with Ken. I'm Ken Biberai, a managing director at Savills, a leading tenant advisory commercial real estate firm. We are in week 55 of social distancing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. In the news today, President Biden will announce executive actions to tackle gun violence. And JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon predicted that the bank would need significantly less office space, just 60 seats per piece. Today's topic is expanding access to art post-COVID. We're joined by the CEO of Artsy, Mike Steib. Mike, how are you, sir?
Ken, it's great to see you, my friend.
You as well. Look, I think right out the gate, we love to kind of frame these as like 55 weeks, over a year. How have you personally been during the course of this year? How has business been, and how did you react to it?
Thank you for asking. Look at a high level, it's sad for the world and sad for the country. As a business leader, I'm trying to make sure that at least we're engaging our employees in the right way and doing right by our customers, our users, and our team. It adds to the challenge of it, certainly, that we've had to do it remotely, but thank God something like this happened at a time when we have the technology that we can run companies with hundreds of people in hundreds of different locations, and we've made it work. Over the last, what we've seen sort of specific to our business over the last year is, I think, what a lot of folks who are in online businesses have seen. First, there was right around March, everyone saw traffic go down, sales go down, as sort of a moment of panic. And no one knew what was coming next. There was a huge wave of layoffs across my industry. We held the line on that and didn't do it. We wanted to make sure we looked out for our team, but there was a brief moment where everyone really freaked out when COVID hit. What we saw next was consumer traffic rebounded very quickly because people suddenly had discretionary time in front of their computer, and increasingly they had discretionary income that hadn't been spent in other places, and they were starting to redirect their energy to online. But with our business partners, we work with art galleries, we work with auction houses. Instead, our business partners had to close their doors in the physical world, and they really needed demand from online channels. And the team just buckled in and did everything that we could to grow demand for our partners. By the end of the year, the average gallery reported that the internet share of their business that was derived from internet sales tripled. And Artsy was a very big part of making that happen. So wow. That's what we did. I miss my friends. Yeah. I miss sitting at the bar at a restaurant I like and having a martini, and I miss life. But we are, you deal with what life gives you, and for our team and for future leaders across businesses, people are learning a lot of resilience this year, and I hope that pays off in positive ways in the future.
So you've always been at the forefront of digital transformation, right? In your previous role at XO and now at Artsy. Give us a little high level kind of framing, like where does Artsy fit in, right? Like how do you help creators? How do you help galleries? Give us the kind of high level of where you fit in and how maybe the mission has evolved over the last year and where you see kind of your growth potential as a firm.
So high level, for some of your listeners may collect art, some may not, just so everyone understands how the art world works. There are 3 million artists who are professional artists. They make a living, or at least a portion of their living, from creating art and selling their art. Of those 3 million artists, the 10% that are the top performing artists or show the most promise tend to be selected by art galleries who invest in that artist's career, develop their career, connect them with collectors, and help them to build their practice and help them to be commercially viable. And there are about 20,000 galleries around the world that are working with those, call it roughly 300,000 gallery represented professional artists. And then of those roughly 300,000 gallery represented professional artists, today about 3,000 or 5,000 of those have critical acclaim and are the brand named artists that everyone's heard of, the Warhols and the Kusamas and the Kaws and the Banksys and so on. What Artsy does is we give the tools to those art galleries and the platform to bring all of those artists to one place, so that someone, whether they are an avid and experienced art collector or new to the collecting world, can in one place see all of the artwork available for sale, can be connected to the art that they may love through our curation, our editorial, our algorithms, and then can have a seamless transacting experience. And where we sit today, Artsy's now aggregated over 1 million works of art on our platform. Artsy's brought together over 3,200 of the world leading galleries, including 200 of the top 250 galleries, all 10 of the top 10 grossing galleries, all have their artists on Artsy. We also work with auction houses, and we even work with individual collectors who want to sell their works into the secondary market, and we make those all available to buyers on Artsy.
Wow. It looks like you've been making a bigger shift recently toward increasing access to opportunity for creators who maybe don't fit in those kind of top rungs, who aren't connected to the galleries, right? Talk a little bit about like the kind of democratization of access for creators. I mean, I feel like you can kind of provide that on-ramp for people who maybe didn't have access to galleries, or didn't have a following, or couldn't reach potential consumers for their product. I mean, how about that end of the pendulum? How does that work?
So there's a three-step path to the promised land here. And the first, we have to move the art world from offline to online. When you bring art online, it makes it more welcoming, it makes it lower friction, it improves discovery, and it makes the art world, which for some people who don't participate in the art world today, they may not feel comfortable, they may not feel welcome, they may not feel equipped to transact smartly in the art world. By bringing this all online, we help collectors, we help people feel more comfortable. Secondly, by nature of doing that, we're increasing sales in the art world. And those 300,000 artists represented by galleries, who I mentioned to you earlier, most of them are not, many of them are not making a great and sustainable living that they can count on for the next 40 years. By bringing more demand to the art world, first and foremost, we ensure that we're helping them maximize demand to those artists who are represented by galleries today, and help those gallery businesses. These can be businesses really well, small businesses, many of them small businesses. Probably the 11th largest gallery in the world has fewer than 20 employees. These are businesses for whom, when we're able to bring extra new collectors and extra demand in, we're really helping to sustain their businesses. Thirdly, as we grease the skids, if you would, as we add more and more on-ramps to the art world for more and more collectors, people like perhaps you and me, who hadn't in the past been experienced art collectors, we make it easier for new people and new money to come into the art world. The demand, the pie starts to expand, and the need for more supply and more artists will expand as well. And when all said, like, the job is going to be done here, when we have $1 trillion art market that can support millions and millions of working artists. And if you imagine a brilliant young soon-to-be college grad telling her parents, I've decided I want to be an artist. Today, the average couple of parents have a disappointed reaction to that, because they know what a tough life their daughter or son is signing up for. Our goal in the future is that when your kid tells you that, you'll say, oh, thank God, I thought you were going to be a banker.
I mean, but that jump from where it is today to $1 trillion market, I mean, it's pretty incredible. And it seems you're well positioned to kind of capitalize, build the infrastructure. And how much of what you're doing is obviously tied to technology, but transparency? How do you view transparency as maybe being a roadblock or an opportunity as you kind of look to level the playing field?
If you had gone to an art gallery, you'd gone to the art world 5 or 7 years ago and said, I have this brilliant idea. Take all your paintings, put them online, and you put the price, they would have thrown you out the door.
Yeah.
And today, in part because of the work that Artsy's been doing, in part because of the transformation that was forced on many industries by COVID, and in part because of the success now that those customers are having, prices online and more detailed information online about the art and the artist is the exception, is the expectation, and is the rule, not the exception. And so if you were to come to Artsy today, we have 600,000 of the paintings on Artsy have visible pricing. We now have, in addition, for all of the in-demand artists who have secondary market transactions, this is the artists you've heard of who sell at auction at Christie's and Sotheby's and all that. We've aggregated from all the top auction houses years of sale data. So if you're contemplating buying a particular artist, we can show you what their market is like and what you can expect from their market in the future, so you can transact with confidence.
So post-COVID, obviously there'll be an opportunity, and I imagine you're probably bullish on people getting back out there and physically seeing art, right? Like, this isn't going to be something that's going to be a total virtual experience, nor should it. What's going to kind of, what are you excited to kind of get back to that's been missing this last year? And then what's never going to kind of, change as a result of COVID, right? Like the digital side of it, or the online side, or the transparency side. So,
well, for the art world, art fairs play a big and important role in the art world. Museum visits play a big and important role in the art world. In fact, more people worldwide, more people go to museums than go to concerts and sporting events every year.
Wow.
And having taken away the museum experience from most people for the last year, you've taken away an important part of our culture, an important part of what people really enjoy doing. I'm excited to get back to all of that. I mean, Artsy hosts 100 fairs on Artsy every year, and it's a digital experience that is married to the physical experience for those who can't go. If you can't get to LA for Frieze, you can see the booths that are up at Frieze and the artworks that are up at Frieze on Artsy. But Ken, like you're hard pressed to find someone who's more sort of digitally focused than me. And I'm going to go to a ton of art fairs as soon as things open back up, because it's fun. It's fun to see the art. It's fun to see your friends, and it's a wonderful, nourishing experience.
Yeah. So the last year has obviously been a challenge on the health front, on the economic front, but 2020 was also defined by social unrest across America. And I feel from what I've been tracking with you and your team, I mean, tell us about how you approach responding to George Floyd's murder and access to opportunity, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know how important that is to you as a manager and a CEO, but like, how do you then kind of take your vision and passion into the sector and enhance it?
Yeah, it's important to me personally, but it's important to our company as well. We're the digital leader in the art world, which is a big responsibility. We're going to be transforming and reshaping the art world for what the art world is going to be like for decades to come. And I'm fond of saying art is upstream of culture. And as you and I both know, culture is upstream of politics. So all of the changes that one wants to see in the world, all of the movements for justice and inclusivity and the human rights that people deserve often start as conversations through art before they become conversations in our culture and before they become legislation. So the art world has to be inclusive and diverse and fair, which means Artsy has to be inclusive and diverse and fair. And after George Floyd's murder, we made a commitment to our users. We sent a letter to all of our users with our commitment for what we were going to do in response. The first was we were going to ensure that Artsy was representative of the world. You can't build a diverse and ethical and fair art world if you don't have a diverse and inclusive employee population. We've proactively diversified our sources of candidates. And over the last 6 months, I'm pleased to say more than 50% of the people we've brought into Artsy happen to be BIPOC or female candidates, female in particular in engineering, where there's too much of a skew toward male engineers in almost every technology company. Secondly, we made a commitment that our algorithms and our marketplace would be anti-racist. And there's a real problem with software, which is software tends to reward clicks, and people tend to click what they already know. And so if you live in a world that has a lattice work of institutional racism or a legacy of social injustice, then it's only reinforced by technology companies, because their algorithms get you to click more of what it's the whole fake news thing that we know. And if you had gone to Artsy 2 years ago and were welcome to Artsy, it would recommend you follow the most popular artists, and they were all dead white men. That's no good. So we've also put together a guild who is regularly editing both our algorithms as well as our rankings of artists to ensure that we're not only leaning on historical popularity, but also into recent trends, and we're ensuring that the art on Artsy is more representative. It's really important. And then finally, we did a bunch of work just to raise awareness and money for causes. The company helped raise over $8 million in the last 12 months through benefit auctions that benefited causes from the Museum of the African Diaspora to the Food Bank and a whole bunch of others. And that's something that, I'm real proud of the team for leaning into that and making sure that we could play a part in getting money into the hands of people doing a lot of the good work out there.
So I feel like you touched so many different things as Artsy, right? So whether you're the creator, getting access to more opportunity to more creators to have their products have a venue to be sold, to the galleries in a material way that's probably never going back, getting them on board with the benefits of being online having their exposure. But there's obviously consumers like myself out there who want cool Zoom backgrounds or care about art and are collectors but want to have greater access. How have you seen your consumers react? A greater pool of consumers coming your way. I mean, how are you expanding the kind of consumer base? Right, it's not sophisticated art collectors all the time, right? I mean, you've now kind of like leveled the playing field for novice people who just want to see interesting stuff, right? I mean, talk a little bit about that and your consumer outreach and growth and so on.
I think the most interesting, the most exciting digital transformations are not the ones that just take something that happens offline and put it online. It's the ones that unlock supply or demand that didn't exist before. So Airbnb is a great example.
Yeah.
We didn't realize that there was this entire planet full of really cool places to stay where you couldn't stay. You couldn't stay in them 10 years ago, and now you can. And it's fundamentally transformed the way people travel and experience new towns and new cultures. Mm-hmm. Think about the art world. There are 17 million. Let's start with just high net worth individuals, right? It's like people who already have money, people who are already buying expensive cars, people who are already buying. There are 17 million high net worth individuals, according to JP Morgan Chase, who have $47 trillion worth of wealth. They buy things like cars and furs and jewelry and handbags. These are depreciating, mass-produced assets that are essentially signals of an increasingly frowned upon consumer culture. And they're spending trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars on that. And of those 17 million individuals, fewer than 1% bought art in the last year. And now you say, why? Why would people who have the means, who could be bringing the beauty of art into their lives, who could be connected to and a part of our culture, who could be patrons of the arts, supporting the work of a living artist they believe in, they're choosing not to do it. And they're choosing not to do it because the art world has historically been just the opposite of inclusive. It is by intent been designed to be exclusive. The way art has created value in the past is to make it feel like you can't participate here. If you walked into an art gallery a year ago, there were no prices on the wall. If you wanted to buy something, you were told that's not available. There's a waiting list for this, for that. The way that the art world was structured was one that just makes you not feel like you're supposed to be there. And then the worst thing is, remember I mentioned there's these 300,000 artists represented by galleries, and there's like 5,000 or so that are critically acclaimed. And the other 300,000, a portion of those will gain notoriety in the future and have future asset value, will actually appreciate in value. The signals are there for people inside the art world to know who that is. Who's gotten museum shows, who's gotten solo shows, who's been represented by what gallery, who's been bought by what collectors, who just got bought in by what museum. All those signals are known by insiders, and we are now productizing those signals for outsiders. So you or I will be able to open up the Artsy app, see a work of art that speaks to us, be connected to other works of art that speak to us, and then see all the data signals, all the trust signals that suggest the future of this artist's market, that then when you transact, you don't worry that you're going to look like a schmuck. Yeah. And that keeps that insecurity that has historically kept people out of the art world, we're taking away, and it's going to massively expand the art world.
So this is incredibly disruptive. Like you think about art and who purchases art and the challenges to access and everything you just mentioned, right? This was a very kind of controlled ecosystem. Where do you run into roadblocks? Where are you seeing challenges? Because this is incredibly disruptive, right? You're letting more people have more access. You're putting transparency, you're putting pricing, you're scoring and validating value. I mean, this is incredible.
It's disruptive in theory, but not in practice, because in practice, what we're talking about in practice, if you think about what one small business owner, one gallery owner cares about, or what one artist cares about, it's having their works acquired by someone who loves them. Yeah. Who's going to support that artist's practice. And so practically what Artsy does is we bring more of those collectors to those galleries and give them the opportunity to purchase those works and support that artist's work over time. So I think if you were to say to the art world, if Artsy didn't exist and say, I've got an idea, let's put it all online and put the prices up and put a buy button up and let everyone participate, they would say that's not how the art world works. When you've actually built that and you've got some traction, and then you can go to a gallery and say, hey, come on board. I estimate that you'll get this many collectors you'll sell this many paintings, you'll make this much money this year. And it's no longer this theoretical question about whether expanding the art market's a good thing. It's a very practical discussion about, I can bring you more business. And at the end of the day, that is what helps the artist to continue to do her work. That's what helps the gallery thrive and stay in business. And that's what keeps the art world moving.
So I just feel there's so much synergy in what you're doing today, coming off of what you did at EXO. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach things then and what you've taken from that experience, which we've talked about in the past, being completely dependent and supportive of small businesses, right? And then also these galleries being small business oriented. And I've always loved that about you, right? Because you've taken that and kind of taken it to the art world on a more dramatic scale. What kind of lessons did you take from the success with EXO, bringing over to artsy, and hope to kind of replicate, or what similarities do you see? I mean, it seems a little obvious to me, but it's kind of interesting.
At EXO, we had one of our brands, our largest brand was called The Knot, and it was the real focus of the transformation of the company. When we came into the business, The Knot was essentially an online magazine for weddings. And our theory was, we had this investment thesis that you could take all the traffic and all the people who knew The Knot and were visiting The Knot, and rather than just give them content and media, you could actually help them to get the job done. Because anyone who's engaged to get married, at least if you're engaged to get married for the first time, you're going to go book like 20 vendors who you've never met before. No one knows a caterer and a photographer and a DJ that like does what, like you haven't interacted with these folks before. And it makes you very nervous. The year of wedding, everyone, the moment you're engaged, it is the most wonderful moment. The moment you're married is the most wonderful moment. The time in between is this project management thing that no one relishes. And so our idea was, let's build software that helps walk you through every step of that wedding planning so that you can plan with confidence. We'll support it with a lot of the great content that we had already created to help you sort of think through all of your decisions. And then when the moment's right and you need a photographer, a DJ, a venue, we will recommend to you the best venues and DJs, photographers in your area who are a match for your needs. So for the consumer, we're taking all this friction, uncertainty, and anxiety out of the wedding planning process. For the local wedding vendor, we're bringing them super qualified couples. There's no small business that says like, I just want as many leads as I can get, and I'm pleased to sift through a bunch of lousy leads, right? It's like, nobody likes that. But when you can say, here's a couple with this budget, with these tastes, with this style, with this date for their wedding, and you're the right fit, and we want to connect the two of you, that is what a great service you're doing for small businesses. And we were driving millions of leads and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of business to our small business partners that they may not have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. In preparation,
it's a fun experience. It was really great.
Oh, I mean, it's just so funny because I never really actually thought about that vis-a-vis what you're doing today and increasing access for small galleries, which like you mentioned, the 11th largest one has under 20 employees, right? So there really is this challenge for them trying to curate and sell. So it's kind of leveling the playing field. One of the things I did in preparation for our chat is, Mike's the author of the Career Manifesto. And I was flipping through it, and it's fascinating because this has obviously been a year incredibly challenging for so many people who are looking for what their next move is, has forced them to kind of pause and reflect and so on. And I mean, I just loved how you talked in the book about finding your purpose, finding your happiness. And it's not just about like, hey, this is how you get your career. It's about life and about how you spend your time and how you're figuring it out. Have you picked it up? Have you looked at it over the last year? Have you, thought about it a little bit? How have you given, folks advice about their, planning for the future based on what's happened? I feel like this year has kind of created a new moment for what you wrote.
Well, I think for knowledge workers, there's this sense that they have fine jobs, they're making fine money, everything's pretty good. They're getting a new title in 12 months, so they should be happy. But there's something that for many knowledge workers is just not clicking. There's a lack of connectivity to the work, or there's some passion missing for many, not for everybody, but for many.
Yeah.
And we have, corporate America has created these synthetic substitutes for that. It's like, well, you'll get this much more money or this much more equity or this many new titles, this scope of responsibility at these milestones if you just hang in there and don't complain too much. And the problem with that is it leads people, knowledge workers in particular, to end up living and experiencing a career that was designed for someone else, not necessarily for them. And I found this throughout my career in conversations I had with people who worked for me, people who were frustrated beyond words that they had not been promoted from account manager to senior account manager, when I found myself saying, were you pulling all-nighters at Princeton so that you would someday be a senior account manager? Is this really the dream? And we dig into what is really the dream. For some people, the thing that they're passionate about is nowhere close to the thing they're currently doing.
Yeah.
And what you can do, and what I do with I do with people who work with me at Artsy today through my office hours, I do it with folks who are connected to me through friends externally, is we just do this process. We walk through really simply an exercise to discover unlock what you're passionate about, and be honest about it, the kinds of activities that you enjoy, the kind of impact that you want to have through your work, an assessment of the skills and experiences that you need to do that really well and successfully at a senior level, contrasted to your skills and experiences today, and then a roadmap for developing those skills and experiences and the other stuff you need in a career, the network, the resilience, the productivity that'll allow you to not just show up at your desk and put in your hours so that you can hopefully get promoted at the job that may or may not be for you, but instead to put yourself on a career path that is one connected to your purpose and is an ambitious path where you can set a plan to become someone very, very senior. And I had someone I had office hours with recently that, like, we had done this a couple of times, and she laid out her plan, and she said for the first time she'd written down on a piece of paper, I want to be a CEO by this date, and this is how I'm going to get there, and this is what I'm going to do next. And she's like, is that crazy? And I was like, I hope not, because when I was 27, I wrote that plan and said, here's where I want to be in 10 years. And in 10 years I was there because I worked the plan. So that was the purpose of the book. And I'd done it verbally so many times with people that I eventually just wrote it down so that it would save us some meetings. And I find myself giving it out a lot.
You wrote it to be more efficient with your own time. I love it. I mean,
And to give back, right? Like, how much have you and I gotten in our careers out of the things that other people have been kind enough to write down? So I want to make sure I paid it forward a little bit.
Yeah, no, listen, everyone listening, I think it's just, it's timely, especially post-COVID, just to think about it. I mean, and not just for your career, but just general happiness, because you'll spend time and energy on what you care about. Mike, I mean, it's always wonderful to see you. So excited to see the trajectory and all the success with Artsy and your new venture. Glad family's doing well. Everybody tuning in, thank you so much for being here today. Next week on Coffee with Ken, we're going to be joined by the CEO of the Aerospace Industries Association, Eric Fanning, and Virginia Senator Mark Warner for a conversation on innovation, workforce, and intelligence. In the meantime, practice social distancing, wear a mask, wash your hands, and get a vaccine. Mike, great seeing you, buddy.
See you, brother.
Thanks so much. Stay well.